This is Space Cat's Peace Turtles, the unofficial podcast for Fantasy Flight's Twilight Imperium. Episode 40, How to Win, From Behind. Music by Ben Prunty, featuring Matt Martens and Hunter Donaldson.
What are you guys doing? That's what I feel like people...
What are you doing right now?
I feel like that's what people are thinking at this point. Like, what are you guys doing? What is the plan? Has Space Cat's Peace Turtles become like a crazy train and there's no conductor?
We're
and
on
it's
the
just
highway to hell. We're
like,
back in black, baby.
It's
a crazy train.
That's not... that doesn't work.
Journey. We're on a journey.
They're like... We went from being this ultra strategy podcast, and then like we're talking about like a movie.
Ultra.
We were ultra.
So ultra.
We were ultra, dude. Hey, the strategy was there and is there.
Sure.
Always. But what's happening now? What's happening to the show?
What's happening is
to the show?
We have
dude?
Gen Con in 3 weeks? 2 weeks?
Yeah.
3 weeks?
Yeah, I just want to point out how lucky you guys are that we're still even doing the show, because the behind-the-scenes work that we're doing to get ready for this Gen Con stuff. We've had meetings,
we had one meeting.
We've had a meeting, a production meeting. Mm-hmm. We've thought a lot about it.
Yeah.
About what we're going to do.
I've made an Excel spreadsheet of a schedule, as I'm wont to do.
Which he was delighted by, of course. It was his favorite. Yeah. I'm glad you like to do it.
We have an equipment list. We have things. We have stuff. We're doing it. It's like we're big boys.
I would say that at this point, talking about Gen Con, this is the point where I feel very, very safe now in saying that it is happening and that we are going to film something. That there's going to be coverage of people playing Twilight Imperium.
Thank goodness. People have been giving us money for like multiple months. I'm glad to have you saying that only just now.
Well, no, I just mean that, like, who knows what could have happened? You know what I mean? Like, sure. I don't know that it's felt as certain as it's felt in the last week.
It is now a thing that is on the books.
Right.
I've given up a week of work for this other work that
it's been on the books for a minute. Like, we bought the hotels and stuff and passes. But what I mean is that now it actually feels like we know sort of what it's going to look like, and I'm very excited about it.
Yeah.
And I just want to kind of at the top of the episode just be like, hey, I really appreciate you guys sticking with us.
Yeah.
And that there's something very, very exciting and special around the corner.
Do we want to kind of touch on that again, too? For people who, like, maybe haven't been paying attention or don't even necessarily care that much about Gen Con, do we want to touch on it again?
Let's talk about it.
What is it we're doing? What are we actually doing? Why do we keep harping on about this? And why are we asking for money? And why is it like a big deal to us?
Well, okay, so there's a lot of things that we're going to try to do. Yes. But the thing that I want to guarantee you is that you're going to get the game, the tournament game, the final game of the Twilight Imperium tournament at Gen Con.
Yeah.
You're going to get that. You're going to get exactly what happened. You're going to get the cool things that happen. The people.
It's going to be like watching the Super Bowl for TI.
I hope so.
Hunter and I will be your sports broadcasters.
Yeah.
We'll be coming here live. It won't be live. It'll be an edited video.
Right.
I think we've gotten that question a few times, actually. I want to make it very clear. We cannot broadcast live from Gen Con. Just like within the parameters of the convention.
Right.
That is not good to do.
Right.
We're not doing that. We're making a video. We're making a follow-up video. It's almost more like if the Super Bowl was done, but they released the video of the Super Bowl a week later, and it was more like a documentary about what happened at the Super Bowl. That's what we're doing.
Right. I want it to be as visceral as possible. I want you to really feel and get like the angle. Like, you've gotten so much of how me and Matt play.
Yeah.
And in fact, to get ahead a little bit, the episode that we're going to do today is a very like me and Matt, our style type of episode.
Right.
But what I would really like, and I think the goal of ours is to just look at some other people that play Twilight Imperium very well and very strategically and get their angle and really capture it in a very, like, this was the game and this is what they did type of way.
If I had to boil Space Cat's Peace Turtles into one mission statement...
You had to boil those cats and turtles down into a kind of soup. You had to make a turtle cat soup. What would it taste like?
It would taste like... we have always strived to bring balance to the idea of this kind of ridiculously complex strategy game that is generally considered a behemoth in the industry.
Right.
And we have always made a case for it of something that is approachable and something that you will want to consume more information about. Maybe it's always the assumption that you don't get to play it enough. Right. None of us get to play Twilight Imperium as often as we would like to play it. And so we try to give you something week to week that is filling the void of until the next time you get to play TI. And this tournament video is a huge extension of that. We would love to be able, trying to do streams is similar, but streams are these long, drawn-out whatevers. We want to give you something that is like, do you want to see what TI can accomplish at its highest echelon?
Right.
That's what we want
and
the
with the pressure on. Like, I feel like the pressure of it being a tournament and that it being at Gen Con will bring out some very special play. Yeah. And we just want to bring that to you and cover that in a really interesting way.
I've even played games with people before where, once they see how either you and I play or some of the other people who... When a newer player plays with a group they've never played with before, and that group is like all kind of high-level players, I feel like a lot of times it gets said, oh, wow, I didn't even think people did this. I didn't think people were this aggressive. I didn't think these kinds of things happened. And that's the kind of plays we're hoping happen at this tournament game. Is like, we're hoping to showcase some stuff where it's like, you play once every couple months with your best friends and you have a really good time doing it. Well, there's this other side of TI that is this cutthroat, visceral beat 'em up.
Right. The people that we talk about that play almost every day, those people.
Yeah.
And we know some of them will be in the tournament. I hope a lot of people like that are in the tournament.
Yeah.
And one other thing I want to touch on before we get into this episode proper is where the podcast that the Gen Con thing is like an extra thing. I get that. Right. The podcast that you're listening to, where is it going? Sure. And I want you to know that we have another arc for the show that we are preparing.
Yeah.
And that the show right now is, we're kind of going week to week, talking about different topics that we've kind of had on a list for a long time.
Little one-offs. These are our one-offs.
Right. It's kind of our one-off portion of the show right now. But there are more strategic arcs of the show to come.
We just didn't want to start any of them until we got through Gen Con. It felt like Gen Con was so big, we needed to devote everything we had to it. So you are getting a lot of episodes that are kind of like discussions I enjoy having, but are certainly much more self-contained and don't require kind of like digging into every single faction or there's not as many things you have to like consider when you're just talking about like a 5-player game or the stuff we're going to talk about today.
Right. And so what are we going to talk about today,
What we're going to talk about today, let's get to the point,
there.
Is I played a game on Saturday, the week prior to this episode coming out, that was kind of inspiring, and I want to talk about, there's this notion that I feel like happens a lot in a game, and there's a host of reasons that this happens, but one player sits back in their chair, gives a big sigh of anger, a harumph, and says, that's it, I'm done. I cannot win now. It's too late, my days are done, it's over. And
you know what, though? I want to be fair to that person real quick, though. It is not fun to lose Twilight Imperium because you lose for 6 hours. That's a 6-hour loss.
Absolutely.
That doesn't feel good.
Well, that is part of what we love about TI, or what we hopefully love about TI, is that for me, it's that it does bring out some real emotions.
There are some actual stakes to Twilight Imperium just by virtue of the fact that it takes a long time to play.
And so even when I have like a terrible loss at the end of it, there's almost like a feeling of relief after having made it through that. You made it through the gauntlet.
Right.
And so, but what we want to talk about today is sort of my theory. It's really both of our theory, that this thing we always kind of harp on, especially with new players, but it's just the idea that you're never down and out.
Right.
There's always, I say always, obviously there's some crazy, very, very last round stuff.
Oh yeah, you could send us an anecdote where there was nothing.
And we touched on that with our king making discussions. Right. We said yes, there are some situations where it's literally in this moment The game is being decided right now.
But this episode's more about attitudes, not necessarily actualities. Like, what is the mode of thinking that you should get yourself into if you want to win Twilight Imperium coming from behind?
Right.
Coming from basically losing to win.
There are multiple ways you can get to losing. And the first one we want to talk about is kind of the simpler one, and then we'll get into some bigger...
multiple ways you get to
topics.
Losing. Are we what? Is
yes,
this
where we get to where you are behind.
I see what you're saying.
If this episode,
I thought you were saying this episode is about how to lose in Twilight Imperium.
Just really just decide that you love your friends and you don't want to see them get hurt.
Oh man, let us know if you want a how to lose. Lose. I'm down.
No, this is assuming things have gone south for you in one way or another,
right?
And you need to turn it around. Mm-hmm. This is the turn it around cast,
right?
So the first and maybe more likely situation is that the points just aren't working out for you.
Right, and they are working out for
everybody working
else.
Out for every and usually, especially like one or two people are just like, oh wow, it's just luck after luck, like easy objective, and everything for you, your pie slice just wasn't where the objectives were. You know that game when it feels like it never really turned. You just never even started scoring.
You're at 2 or 1 or 0, and they're at 5 or 6 or God forbid 7.
Yes, it feels like what could possibly go right now. It's just too late, right? I mean, now they're at 6, you're at 2. What could you possibly do to somehow win in this game?
Well, you got to have a swing round. That's what you got to do. There's no other way to do it. You have to have a swing round.
That's going to be. Hunter already said this before that he wants that to be the next SCPT definition vocabulary.
I mean, I feel like there are some words that we've thrown into that we didn't. By the way, I'm not being cocky here. We did not make up a lot of the words that, but I feel like SCPT has been a really good opportunity to kind of cement the vocabulary.
Makes it easier.
Swing round is definitely something that people talk about, and that we definitely did not make up the idea of a swing round. But I think people should be more focused on when they're losing, trying to create a swing round, because that's the only real way to win.
Right. I think, even without being from a losing position, a big part of Twilight Imperium is planning on having a swing round no matter what.
Oh, for sure.
A lot of times you could be in the lead, and the way you win should be a swing round. So what is a swing round?
What is a swing round?
Yes. Yeah. A swing round, more than anything...
What do you need? What is essential to a swing round that you basically have to have?
The Imperial strategy card.
Right.
There's you can have a good round without Imperial, but a swing round is... You're going to score 2 objectives this round.
Right.
Ideally, one of them's going to be a 2-pointer. If it's that late in the game.
If we're in that part of the game.
If you're not scoring 2 objectives, you're not having a swing round.
Right.
Is the way I look at it.
Yeah, you need the 2 objectives, possibly a secret in there, and maybe even a Mechatol point.
Right.
I mean, we're talking about, that could be 5 points there. If you do all those things. That's half the game.
And that's why we're bringing this up, is because you can score half of the required points you need in a game in one round. Which means at any point this is an important point to define, at any point in the game, it's kind of anybody's game.
Yeah.
If someone can come from... We've had this Imperium Life submissions. We've had Plays of the Week where it's like, I was at 4 and they were at 8 and I won.
Right.
That can happen, and it's because of swing rounds. And the swing round is a crucial element to really any win in TI. It's the reason the Yssaril tribes were broken in TI3.
Right.
Because they could pull off a swing round better than anybody else.
Right.
They could do more things than anyone in one round, and they could do it without anybody having anything else to say about it. So in TI4, because of the way Imperial as a strategy card is structured, allowing you to score a point in the middle of a round, it gives you more access to points than you would normally have. Adding in a Mechatol point, and then maybe adding in secret objectives, brings that up to a lot. So this might sound really basic to a lot of you. Just the idea that if you want to win, you got to score a ton of points in one round. Right. So obviously that's not it. But we want to define that because that part is crucial. You're going to need some other things as well, but you're going to have a swing round.
I just more wanted to throw out there because I feel like I see players that are behind not take Imperial because they're hung up on something else.
Right. They're just trying to go for the tech objective. It's like, well, if I can just solidify at least the tech objective. The big point here is, if you're behind, going for easy objectives isn't going to get you anywhere.
It is not going to help
you.
The
other players are already scoring easy objectives. You sitting back and also just getting your easiest objectives isn't going to help. What I want to propose you do is now you need to get your eyes open and you need to look for an objective that is difficult for you to do, but is also in someone else's way, preferably the people who are in the lead.
Right.
You need that 4-planet trait of the same, 4 planets of the same trait, and you need 2 of those planets to be in the leader's pie slice.
Right. And meta-wise, you're going to be backed up. In this situation, if I see a player with 2 victory points attacking a player with 7 victory points, and I see that it's even in their way, even though in that point I'm like, oh, well, they're going to get that point.
Yeah.
I'm way more inclined to let them do that and just see what happens.
You have so many bargaining chips when you're that far behind and attacking the leader. You can get people to help you score that VP pretty easily.
And even if I realize that player is going for a swing round, I probably will, as far as meta goes, still be inclined to let them do it, or at least let them get some of that done.
I think there's 2 things at play there. There's one, you just want to see if they can do it. It's always fun to see a crazy play get made. You want to see it. But 2, it's always hard to see a 6-point round coming.
Oh, very much so.
Especially because you would be having to throw in secret objectives there, and it's very hard to predict what secret objectives someone has. Once you know all of them, it gets a little bit easier, but still, you can set things up to make it very difficult to know exactly what you're going for. And so, having a big swing round and getting the assistance of people who are just slightly ahead of you is not very difficult to do. And I think this is going to be a theme that runs pretty consistent through this episode is if you're behind, you can get help from people. People are typically willing to help someone who is behind because they can gain something from you, and they're hoping to also be beating the leader. You're not trying to get something from the person in the lead. You're trying to get someone from the person in 3rd place. Because they want to get paid to help them further their own gains. So you need to be prepared to pay and then also get help. So what kind of help are we talking about? The kind of help we're looking for is, this is the situation where I'm willing to give up some promissory notes that are pricey because I need some ships moved out of my way so that I have better access to a victory point or something like that. Or I just need trade goods, right? If I just need 6 trade goods, all right, time to throw out that support for the throne for 6 trade goods. Things like that. Look for easy ways to get paid by your opponents who are looking to get their own advantages. If they need your ceasefire to get you off their case, fine. If they need a support for the throne because they think that 1 point will push them far enough ahead of the leader, great. You're looking for that kind of stuff. But all of this is still kind of the simple version of this problem.
Most people should understand this. I mean, I feel like I still want to emphasize having the Imperial strategy card is so important.
It's kind of crucial. Imperial strategy card is the best strategy card in the game.
For sure.
For this sole purpose. And you should always be keen to find a way to use it.
And I feel like I'm not seeing it getting picked enough by underdogs in games.
And I'm not seeing it used by underdogs well enough. I see an underdog get it kind of as a blocker maybe, just like, I don't want the person in the lead to get it, but I'm going to score an objective in the middle of the round, but then I'm not going to have anything to score in the status phase. Well, then you kind of wasted the opportunity of Imperial. Imperial, you take Imperial when you're ready to pull some stuff off. And sometimes that maybe needs if you're behind, I mean, this is kind of a game theory thing, I think, without having read enough about game theory, but the idea that if you want to get ahead, you need to take more risks is kind of a typical thing. If you are already far behind, sitting down and being cool with everything that happens is not going to get you anywhere. It's time to start throwing some punches. And see where it gets you. Because you won't get ahead if you don't.
Even to the point of possibly even chaotic play at this point.
Become an agent of chaos. I love using that term.
Very dramatic. But you have to make sure that if you're going to, so there's kind of the layout that we're throwing out of you can kind of go for a very orchestrated swing approach. I'm going to swing myself up into the pack and become competitive again. The other thing though is that if you don't see that path or you can't get a hold of Imperial, I feel like I'm not seeing enough of people that don't have a way to win kind of just making it difficult for the people in the lead. And being unpredictable and doing things that are create chaos as far as the relationship between all of the players is smart if you don't have a way to win this round. If you don't have a way to get back in, I feel like I'm just not seeing people fight hard enough from behind.
Here's the difference. There's an important point to that, which is don't be chaotic just for chaos. There's the Muat player who's in dead last, so they decide to just throw their War Sun at a fleet.
Oh, yeah.
That's probably a losing fight. Like, no,
Right.
that's not the chaos we're talking about. You need chaos that gets you something, but is so far out of your reach, people weren't expecting you to do it, and it wasn't part of anyone else's plans.
Right.
You need to go against the grain so that people get caught off of their footing, and they need to struggle with dealing with whatever it is you just did. But you don't need to sacrifice your entire fleet and lose it,
Right.
just to make some gains.
And something that can disrupt the actual order of the game. I mean, like, the easiest example I can think of off the top of my head is I feel like I've seen too many games where someone takes Mechatol Rex, gets to keep it at little cost to themselves, and no one in the bottom half decides, like, I'm just going to unseat you from Mechatol Rex because I just want to shake up the order
Exactly.
of this.
Mechatol Rex is always, in some way, going to be worth a point.
Right.
So taking Mechatol Rex from someone else, even if it's not immediately getting you a point, it's denying someone else a potential point, and could get you a point, and you should go for that. Like, yeah, I think that's the perfect kind of basic example, and you can find other things like that, but the idea of just like, I'm gonna take over Mechatol Rex because I'm too far behind to know what else I can do.
Right, exactly. Sometimes you will be behind and you won't see that path to scoring a bunch of victory points, and that's fine. Score the points you can score.
Right, which is Mechatol.
Right, and disrupt the overall structure of the game.
That's the other reason Imperial is important. Even if you're not going to have a swing round, it's time to get some new secret objectives then, because you got to find points somewhere. The big thing I'm just trying to push you away from doing is the worst thing you can do is roll over and let it happen.
Right.
I see people in round like 3 or 4 just sort of give up and throw up their hands and not really do anything. And it's like, well, why are you? You can push for it and you might see something change. Something could happen. And you're going to love that you gave yourself the opportunity to take advantage of that.
Right.
Rather than if you just, you never take, what's the old phrase? You
miss the shots. You always miss the shots.
As Michael Scott once said.
Wayne Jordan, Michael Gretzky, as LeBron Woods. LeBron Woods, what's a French player from the soccer team?
Yeah, one of those guys.
The soccer team.
Sure.
One of the French players from the soccer teams.
All right. Let's talk about the other much, much bigger discussion that is at play here. We've harped on about just like, oh, I'm behind and I should try harder.
Right.
Well, okay, yeah, duh. But that's obviously not the main way people fall behind.
Right. So what do you do if you're actually in the lead doing well?
Yes.
And then your game blows up for you, plastic wise.
Right.
Right. This is a much more common, well, not necessarily much more common, but I think a lot more fun for us to discuss.
Right.
Because this is what happens to us.
Yeah.
Because we're winners. We always win.
We're the winners. No, this is such a normal thing of I
am in the lead.
Or like in a soft lead, right? Like, oh, there's 3 of us in the top of the pack, and one of us is going to get hit. Just like whatever happens, boom, I just got dragged down. I lost that planet I didn't expect, and that was like, this phrase, the like, you have no idea what I just lost just from losing that one planet.
Right.
You just took it because it was a whim, but that was my last tech specialty or whatever.
Right.
I needed that to stay in the pack,
Right.
and now I'm screwed.
Right.
What am I going to do?
What do you do when everything blows up? How do you pull out a victory from behind, basically?
Yes.
The title.
So, the title.
How to win from behind.
So, I want to talk about the game that I just played.
Anecdotal now.
We're going to get anecdotal.
Baby.
I had a game on Saturday. We were tweeting it. I tweeted like once every round, so it's not like you have that much information to gain from it. But if you go to our Twitter, you'll see a couple pieces of a game we played where I was the L1Z1X. And it was kind of a strange game. We say that about every single game of Twilight Imperium.
Well,
Twilight
they're
Imperium
all weird,
It's always
they?
a weird game.
Yeah.
So this one was super low scoring early on, kind of from everyone. But for me specifically, I didn't score a single objective for the first 2 rounds. I did score a Mechatol point. I took Mechatol first, and I scored an Imperial point. So I was I was in the pack, but I hadn't scored a single objective. And the game continued on. I was L1Z1X. I got a fairly fast War Sun upgrade. That was like kind of my goal that game was I was wanting to do some science about like I really do want to just like get War Suns.
He had a very good tech specialty.
I had a red, a green, a blue, all in my slice, and I had a yellow right next to my slice as far as tech specialties.
Turns out you don't need inheritance systems if you have all the specialties.
Yeah, you just skip all the bad tech and get whatever you want. So I was getting kind of no filler tech. I was getting only hitters and got War Suns like round 3, something like that. I got Dreadnought 2 first, then I got War Suns.
Right.
That's the game I was having. I didn't go straight for War Suns. I got it as a secondary thought. But I built my first War Sun, and it immediately got attacked.
Right.
As soon as my War Sun hit the board, everyone was just like, that's a threat. Even though I was in the pack. I wasn't a winner. I wasn't taking lead. I didn't even have any obvious victory points I was going to get. It was just like, well, if we're all in the pack, and Matt has a War Sun, we know that can't fly. That's not good. I had the same reaction to Extra building their flagship right next to me. Right. I saw their flagship and went, can't have that. That will certainly impede my ability to get future points. So gotta deal with that.
Right.
The problem is my War Sun was in my home system, and the Federation of Sol are the ones that came to get it.
Right.
So I had a big Federation fleet in my
including
home system.
the flagship.
The flagship with a bunch of fighters.
You know how we feel about that.
We know how you feel, yeah. So
everyone's favorite episode.
So yeah, I managed to retreat the War Sun from that fight. It got out by the skin of its chinny chin chin, and I had a parlay, which was also very lucky. So Federation of Sol came into my home system and was only left with blockading it, and they didn't kill a War Sun. Pretty good for me, but still I'm like on the fence. And the beginning of the next round, they immediately attacked my War Sun again and blew it up. But this is because they attacked it because they took leadership. I took Imperial because I decided that was the round I was going to try to have a swing round.
Right.
They were making it very clear to me that they wanted to keep going for the War Sun and not try to invade my home planet. So I was pretty certain my home system was going to be okay. But even if it wasn't, I immediately started making very open-faced deals with everyone else at the table.
Right.
Hey, I'm getting gutted like a fish. I will give up anything to anyone no matter what. You get adjacent to me and you attack Sol, you earned yourself some stuff.
Right.
Guaranteed.
Right.
I'll help you with your objectives. I'll give you money. I'll give you promissory notes.
This is a very common Matt tactic.
Oh, yes.
If you're threatening Matt's game, then Matt will pay everyone everything to have you. And in the past, it's been very...
It has worked. It worked in my Winnu game as well.
Right. And you can actually see that game on stream where he gives Michael, the Krius player, what was it?
Support for the throne.
Support for the throne to get him to attack Doug, who was playing Arborek.
Right. Arborek tried to kick Winnu when they were down, and I immediately said, well, then I will sow the seeds of chaos. Right. I will do anything I can to hurt that decision.
Right.
And so I was doing the same thing, funny enough, to the same player, playing as a different faction.
Right.
Doug was my problem Arborek, and this time he was my problem Sol. So I was willing to pay anyone anything, and I had an opportunity to, as long as I kept the planets in my home system, I could have a swing round. And I did. I went from 2 points to 8 points. But as a lot of us know, that put me in a lead that it was a little bit scary to be in. And so going into the final round, this is kind of where things turn different, and there was a lot of weird meta plays and a lot of strange happenings where I actually wasn't the target because I had been hit so hard. I built another War Sun and also lost that one almost immediately.
Right.
So built 2 War Suns, never used either of them. That's a whole other discussion.
Right.
But suffice it to say, I didn't look like I was about to win. And in fact, the reason I won is because what was being openly discussed at the table was everyone trying to cement their position to get as many points as they could in this one round, assuming it would go on to another round, because when they looked at my board position and everything that I had, they said, we don't see a way that Matt can win.
Right.
So as long as we just keep him at bay, we'll all give ourselves an opportunity to win next round.
Should we sort of talk about the importance of playing this up whenever you're in this position? I feel like...
Absolutely.
And I don't want it to sound like we're contradicting ourselves. Earlier we said, like, oh, you shouldn't throw your hands up in the air and be like, oh, I've lost.
You should do that.
You actually should do that. It's just that you shouldn't believe it.
Right.
You shouldn't think it in your heart.
Right.
But it is a very useful meta play to have yourself discounted on the table.
Yep.
I have done this many times.
This is Hunter. I would call this one of Hunter's main tactics. And it's not even in this extreme of a situation, but it's kind of like, if you do anything to Hunter, he will be very vocal about, all of the ways the other person is going to benefit from doing that, so that the whole table is looking at that person and not at whatever Hunter is planning.
I try and do all of the math to show them that this is only going to benefit another person, and I just leave out all the ways that it could benefit me, that kind of thing. If you watch the stream game, which it's kind of a weird one to watch strategically because we had the weird audience agendas, but in that game when I was playing as the extra, if you watch the last round of that game, I encourage everyone to talk as if there is another round of the game. If you have it set where you're going to win this round, the easiest way to have people not look at what you have going on in your slice and what's going on with you is to just talk like, we've got another one.
Hunter always notices, because for me, I kind of do a little bit worse tactic, which is I kind of just shut up. I tend to close up, and I just don't want people looking at me, which, if you know to look for that kind of thing, becomes an incredibly obvious tell of, oh, Matt is suddenly not talking at all. He must have a plan to win.
It's interesting because in the last round of Twilight Imperium, it does start to become a little bit like poker in this way.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Very much so.
Especially, well, that's my favorite thing about close games, is that is certainly what is happening in the final round. If everyone's at 8 or 9, in the final round of TI, it is absolutely poker. It's everyone trying to keep everyone else from knowing exactly what their path to victory is.
Right.
So yeah, you should be making your case to the table that, like, and this goes for, so there's two ways to go about this. My typical response is what we've already kind of outlined, which is, you've already attacked me, and I start screaming at the rest of the board, everyone else better do something about this. It's time to act, because in them taking stuff from me, they're only gaining more out of it, and so they should be your target. I will pay anyone to entice them for them to become the target. Hunter is a little bit better about getting ahead of this.
I count. The thing I'm always counting is how many infantry that other players have that can get to me, how many bombardments they have versus how many infantry I have, basically. I always try and count this up because I feel like if you do the math properly on this, you can pretty much always assure that you're not going to get attacked. Now, if I do get attacked in a way that is going to hurt me very greatly, the way I always paint it... See, I'm a little less trustworthy of other players. I don't table... Matt, one of the differences in me and Matt's style is that Matt very regularly speaks to the entire table as the UN. Like, you'll talk to the whole table as if, like, we are all a group of players and we all have one common interest, and it just so happens to be Matt's.
It's convenient that
I'm a little more one-on-one with my dealings. And when someone is going to do something to me that is going to throw me quite a bit, hopefully I saw it coming. If I did not, then I'm more of a mutually assured destruction type of meta player. In that I just assure them that, like, okay, they can make this choice, but it's going to cost you too much to do this. You haven't done the math properly.
And you look for avenues to give them an out. You say, I see that you want to do this for this point. What's another way I can help you get some other point?
Turn my enemy into a friend, basically.
Yes, you always look to change their mind. I always assume they've made their decision, and I need to get everyone else to change their minds. So I think they're two both valid versions of the same thing, and it just depends on your group.
And I the way we've kind of chosen to clarify them in the outline is mine is more of a defensive approach, whereas Matt's is a more aggressive approach.
I am inherently a more aggressive player, so I'm thrown into these situations more often.
I do not meta the entire table as well as Matt does, but as a one-on-one meta person, maybe we should.
Hunter will get someone in his pocket, and it's very hard to shake them out.
I very regularly win games because the player, one of my neighbors, was always on my side, basically.
And I think that's a point that a lot of people brought up in favor of a support for the throne trade, like swap, stuff like that. But that it's like, me as a player, I have a hard time pulling that off and making that decision. And I think it's just, at this point, it's almost like it precedes me, where people just don't trust me. And I can't seem to turn it around. I can't get people to trust me. So now I'm just locked into, all right, well, I got to find a way to make the aggressive approach work. So
what do you do if, actually, I think at this point, I just kind of want to know, and I think the listeners want to know, how did you pull it out on the game example that we're using?
So I was very willing to pay anyone to attack the soul, but even more so, I was being very open about like how this was going to benefit the soul and made everyone more fearful of the soul. So the next round, Soul got hammered pretty hard. I mean, they were losing a lot of ground, and very quickly had to figure out how are they going to maintain. And
I would not be able to do that.
Right.
Like, I would not be able to get the rest of the table to do that. I want to make that clear. That is a difference between me and Matt's abilities.
And so, in addition to that, was keeping a low profile outside of that, like maintaining the position that, like, well, I still got screwed over.
I'm losing.
I'm losing.
You
all helped prevent Soul from winning right now, but I'm still losing, and we keep it that way. And in that last round, I stalled for as long as I could until I could pull off a game-winning maneuver, which was there was a 2-pointer to control someone else's home system, and basically I was in a position where nobody thought I would be able to do that. And I set up an opportunity to do it.
Right.
So I did win the round before everyone else thought. Everyone assumed we were going into one more round, and I kind of cut it off at the knees because I would say 2 main things, which was I was in a behind position and milked it for all it was worth, and because the previous round I had a swing round. And those 2 things added up to a pretty solid victory.
Right.
There are some meta things that happened that I think, depending on the group, I wouldn't have gotten away with. But, I mean, you play the game that you're in, not every game.
Right.
So Hunter wasn't there.
Right.
If Hunter had been there, he would not have allowed me to get
Well,
anything.
I don't know.
Maybe.
I'm a one-on-one meta person, not a table meta person, and I feel like there have been plenty of games that we've played together where you have successfully meted the table either against me or just for your own benefit, and I can't figure out how to get
on the other side of it.
Get on the other side of it. But let's talk a little bit about when you're losing or when your plastic is being blown off of the table. What are the elements of the game that you want to try and exploit to swing yourself back, basically?
Right.
I mean, how did you accomplish this? You had you told me you had a great action card hand.
Yeah.
I feel like that's very important.
A lot of action cards. I want to redefine this.
Yeah. Okay.
I want to talk about it in terms of something bad just happened to you.
Right.
And that sucks. But there's a list of things that can happen to you, and they feel bad, but they do not necessarily prevent you from winning.
Oh, right. I like this. This is so Matt. This is the most Matt thing of all time.
So the things that can happen to you that you need to look at and say, well, okay, that doesn't kill me yet, and maybe I'll be able to find something later that turns this around. First off, you can lose a big fleet in Twilight Imperium and be okay.
Or like maybe 2 War Suns.
Or you can lose 2 War Suns.
We literally have an anecdote for you where someone built War Suns. Did you destroy a single thing with the War Suns?
I didn't kill a single thing with the War Suns.
So how much?
Except for like in the fight they were being attacked, killing like a fighter or whatever.
How many resources is that wasted?
That's 24.
24 resources went right into
This is why I don't think devotion is a good ability.
Oh.
The Yin Brotherhood, just getting economic gains is not enough because you can lose a huge fleet and still be okay.
Right.
So,
what else can happen?
You can lose Mechatol Rex.
Right. You
and
can
survive.
have Mechatol Rex and lose it. Yes.
There are plenty of other ways to win the game. Losing Mechatol Rex is not everything, even though sometimes it can feel like everything.
Right.
In this situation, another thing that happened to me, actually, everything we have in this list, except for the very last one, is what happened to me in this last game.
And you can lose a big fleet from all of this.
You can lose Mechatol Rex. I had Mechatol Rex most of the game, lost it towards the end. I wasn't holding on to it that hard, but I lost it. You can get your home system blockaded. I think it is very difficult to come back from having your home system completely invaded, especially if it's a good invasion where they're left with a decent number of infantry behind. That is certainly very difficult to fix.
Even that, though, you can still do Imperial plays, like as in taking.
There are other points. If it's like a late game thing and you're at 8, losing your home system doesn't necessarily mean that you are down for the count.
Right.
You need to get some more secret objectives, and you need to get some Mechatol points, or there are other points you can get.
Right.
But getting your home system blockaded is certainly not the worst thing that can happen to you. There are lots of ways to get yourself out of having your home system blockaded. So if any of those things happen to you, you need what Hunter was kind of about to define. You need game changers.
Right.
We need to figure out what are our tools that are at our disposal. If in the normal way we look at things, we say, okay, I scored a point this round, someone else scored 2 points that round. Next round, same thing happens. They're at 4, I'm at 2. Happens again, 6 versus 3, like I'm just falling behind.
Right.
You need something that turns the tide of battle. What we always describe in the race guides is, like we said, this ability isn't that useful because it's a win from ahead, like it's a win more thing. Win more things are not that useful. What is useful is things that pull you from behind.
Yeah, like swingers.
Swingers. Swingers. Let's call it swingers. Very good idea.
With Vince Vaughn.
No, the things you have at your disposal
are... The swingers you have.
The swingers that you have are, first off, the agenda phase.
That's a big swinger right
period.
there. That's like a swinger convention. That's like a swingers club.
Oh, no. Yeah, the agenda phase is a huge opportunity to disrupt...
To swing.
Stop it. You get a yellow card. You're done. Another big one is action cards. Right. We all know that we like Neural Motivator. Neural Motivator gives you a lot of opportunities to do things.
It's obviously better than Starwing Tools.
Obviously better than Starwing.
Not that this is that episode.
No. The whole reason we love...
We'll never give you that.
Stop it. The whole reason we love Neural Motivator is that it gives you a lot of these opportunities to turn things around for yourself. There's nothing better than like playing Rise of the Messiah when you are getting low on ground forces, right? That is a huge come from behind moment. That's a big deal to pull off. Or a sabotage at the right moment.
I want to ask you a question actually right now. Here's a little thought experiment. If you didn't have Neural Motivator and you were going into what was a late game horrible round, would you be, if you had a bad hand of action cards and you're thinking, if I get an action card or two that's good, that could really change everything right now, would you buy a late game Neural Motivator as a desperate move? I don't think I ever have, but I think it's rare. About it.
I think it's rare that I would. What I would instead say is, you can just do the secondary of politics. You don't even need to take politics.
There we go, baby.
Save yourself one command counter and start doing the secondary of politics. If anything, that's like the number one argument against Neural Motivator that some people have is like, if I just always bank a command counter for the secondary of politics, you're going to get plenty of action cards.
Well, it depends on who we're talking about.
Depends on who we're talking about, but my point being, there have been plenty of times where I have had 7 cards in my hand, and it's like, I need to burn these before the status phase, because if I'm going to get 2 more, like, that is a problem.
For
sure. You can always counterweight your action card problem by taking the secondary of political.
For sure.
And so late game, in those last 2 rounds, you should save command counters for the secondary of political.
Right.
Because you need action cards, because guess what? Everyone else definitely is hanging on to action cards that are going to help them win the game.
Right.
So everyone needs that's your number one utility in the end game, is like what action cards are going to help you pull off a victory.
All right.
That is how most people win games.
Okay. All right. What's another swinger we got?
This one's a little bit more meta. It's a little stranger to define, but like,
Got a little stranger danger to it.
That stranger danger swinger, let me tell you, is the fact that other people have objectives that they are going for that you can take advantage of. Everyone isn't focused on you.
Right.
Everyone is focused on what they are trying to do.
Right.
And so you can manipulate or see what they're going for and either use that against them or entice them further because you know what they're trying to get and you can get them to pay you. There are lots of things at your disposal as long as you know what your opponents are trying to accomplish.
Right.
You can get huge economic advantages if you know so-and-so needs 2 more trade goods, and if you give them 2 trade goods in return for something that's going to give you a huge swing, it might end up being worth it, and you need to do that opportunity cost.
Yeah, make deals and get in the way of people. Be the emperor from Star Wars, basically. That's who. Be conniving.
Yeah,
that'll help you swing.
I think the key to being a good swinger is always knowing when the timing is right. Never swing when everyone else isn't on board.
Yeah. Welcome to Swing Cast.
Always swing with an interested party.
Yes. Consent. Welcome to our consent workshop for Space Cats, Peace Turtles. Yeah, this is a mess.
Did we leave anything unsaid there? I feel like that's kind of the gist of it, is like, play up how badly you just got hurt and find the important tools that help you turn it around.
Right.
Find ways to utilize agendas, get action cards, and play people against each other.
Right.
And you can pull off a lot. The biggest thing, the number one piece of advice is do not count yourself out, because you do not know what's going to happen.
Right.
I get, like we said at the top, I get that there are situations where it's like, no, like literally this is the last play of the game. Well, okay, I don't have a solution to that. But I'm talking about going into that last round. So often it's anybody's game.
Right.
And you got to learn to not count yourself out, because who knows? What if the SAR takes over the Soul's home system just as the Soul is messing with you, and you didn't know the SAR was going to do that, but like there are 6 players at this table, and you just have to be prepared to allow the other 4 players to do what they're going to do. So if you get hit hard, it's okay. There's 4 other people that all have actions that they need to take, and not everyone is playing against you unless you're getting king made. Whatever. That's a whole other thing.
Right.
The point to all of this is that I rule, I won. No, I don't know. I don't know why I'm doing that right now.
Yeah, Matt rules.
I
Matt
rule.
won. And
I'm a
he's
meta
so good.
genius.
He's so good.
I know how to. I'm gonna play you. So I can't wait to play in a tournament someday and get my butt handed to me, and then everyone realize that this is all a sham.
I'm really excited about going to Gen Con and seeing these people like play really good Twilight Imperium, and us walking around being like, "Well, that's really crazy that you did that there.
I can't believe
we never would have thought to do that."
We so many times actively said that wasn't good, and you just did it so good.
Yeah, like somebody's like Sardak Noor is gonna win the finals of the tournament, and they're gonna be like, "Yeah, we didn't research any tech, and tech's actually not good."
Yeah.
Like,
all right, let's get out of here.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Let's do something. Let's do what we're supposed to do. The erotica. Sorry, the errata.
Stop it.
All right, welcome to Space Cats, Peace Turtles, Errata, and we're not doing any funny business. This has been a creepy enough episode. This episode has creeped pretty hard. Your first errata is from...
What episode was this for?
This was for...
Five player
games, yeah. And our first errata is from old friend RoboFish.
I want to point out with RoboFish, the Board Game Geek Guild... It's a little quiet these days.
Right.
Not as many people using the bad website that is bored. I think I've effectively... it's working.
You literally
No, it's finally working, though. Like, my plan has been so... But RoboFish is, like, the one holdout. And every week he's there, and he kind of is always guaranteed an errata because he's kind of the only person
It's crazy, too, because RoboFish... We like RoboFish enough. We like a RoboFish's errata enough to where I would probably just want to keep the Board Game Geek Guild going
I literally keep it open.
It's literally just like a forum for him.
Yeah. This was originally, we used to post in the Fantasy Flight forums.
Oh, right.
And RoboFish was the only person who posted there. And then we left, and so RoboFish was like, well, I guess I'll go to Board Game Geek with you guys because I hate Reddit. And it's like, well, fair enough. And, well, here we are.
Hey, I hate Reddit.
What did RoboFish have to say?
Your advantages segment was like, everyone benefits from 4 trade goods. He's talking about what the 4 trade goods start. Well, yes, but how? Our Barrett gets a carrier and a tech from the first round. The Nor maybe 2 techs. But what does everyone else do? Is it just carrier and 2 ground forces and tech? Well, I mean, right off the bat, it most certainly isn't just those things.
But those things are really great.
Oh, sure, yeah. Oh, yeah. We probably should emphasize that. I feel like you're making it sound like an extra tech... Like a tech on the house and a carrier and 2 ground forces round 1 is not a big deal. I mean, that's quite a bit of goodies.
But there is something that... We didn't go into that many specifics of, like, what does every single faction get? But it's because it is a little bit more general than that. And, Hunter, you had the good description of what those 4 trade goods can be used for anyone.
Okay. 4 trade goods... A resources, A influence. That's halfway for both of those. We got the
5 trade goods objective.
5 trade goods objective.
So you 4 out of 5.
One mo.
Yeah.
That means that if you take if that comes out round 1 and you take trade, you got a whole VP basically on the house with 2 trade goods left over.
Right.
What else is there? I feel like I went off so hard earlier and I don't remember any of that.
No, I mean it's the fact that anyone can bank it. And like free VP.
I don't know, just so it's the best resource in the game to fix this problem with the best resource in the game. It
feels like a bit much.
It feels like a lot.
I personally think
cone. So like doing well in round 1 helps you do like just explode basically. There's an exponential growth.
It is the start of a very wide flow chart.
Right. And it seems like the factions are very specifically designed to like roll out in a very specific way.
Right.
And this, I feel like, just like completely 4 trade goods just flies in the face of that.
Right.
So specifically.
And I just feel like it is such a bigger advantage than I am 1 further away from a neighbor.
Right.
Which is what the other side of the board. That's what you're balancing against is like, oh, I think more importantly what you're balancing against is like they probably have more planets that they have access to.
Right.
And I get that, but
also a carrier and 2 ground forces if we're talking off the secondary of warfare or with the primary of warfare.
That is another
planet.
That's
a whole nother... Yeah. That's not even a whole nother planet. That's a whole nother system. That could be a whole nother 2 planets.
Right. That could be go to 4.
So essentially 4 trade... Is there... I guess I think the question really is this, RoboFish. Is there anything that 4 trade goods doesn't get you round one, basically? It's essentially at this point, the more I think about it, the more it's like, it basically guarantees that you can get almost any first round victory point. That there's no...
And whereas the people in the other those two far away positions are playing a pretty standard game of TI and possibly have access to one more system.
Right. And wouldn't it be really messed up if the solution was to just give that player a free victory point?
Right.
And that's weird. Almost, I feel like that's not far from what it does.
That is what it feels like to me.
Right.
With 4 trade goods.
And especially first round is so critical as far as what people can accomplish as far as victory points
That is part of the balance of the game. That's the other reason. I think we're coming at this from a TI3 perspective more than anything, too.
Right.
Because TI3, you had stuff like some people started with XRD transporters. That's why Asaro were so good. 2 carriers, both with 2 movement.
It was insane.
If you start with 4 trade goods on top of that, there's literally nothing you could do against Asaro. That's ridiculous. So I think our hatred for the trade good methods started with TI3, where the starting forces were much more hard to... a much bigger deal.
They were slanted in a way that was kind of insane.
Let's move on to a pretty related conversation. I think the only huge thing to talk about in the 5-player stuff is to talk about this trade good imbalance.
Right.
So TI4 is a virtue from the subreddit said, curious, how are the extra trade goods horrendous for balance? I get that they totally mess with our preconditioned ideas about how each faction ought to start the game. However, in general, the factions of TI are not balanced. They are fundamentally asymmetrical, and every game skews that asymmetry in slightly different directions based on multiple factors, objectives drawn, and in what order, meta factors, counters, interfaction dynamics, etc. There's another factor, this TI4 is a virtue is coming from a standpoint, too, of they play with choosing factions and starting positions based on a bidding pattern, so they are actually kind of somewhat used to people starting with a couple trade goods. So I feel like that's an important caveat to their point of, the asymmetry is already there. Right. There's a big problem in the game.
It's already built
into the game, so what's a couple more trade goods? But they're coming from, well, someone's already getting trade goods. So for us, without doing bidding, why is 4 trade goods to 1 player and 2 trade goods to 2 players? Why does that upset an already asymmetrical game?
I mean, I think it's the lack of elegance to it, really, kind of going off of everything we said in response to RoboFish's.
Yeah.
That it's such a powerful way to fix it. It feels like you're kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater a little bit. It's too much.
Yes.
And also... I feel like TI4 as a virtue kind of answers the question with saying that so many things in TI4 is asymmetrical, that having this kind of cut across the board, just give them 4 trade goods, as if there's some sort of symmetry to that. It's actually just another layer of asymmetry on top of everything else.
Right. Our biggest problem with, I think, the 4 trade goods was thinking about what that does for Soul or these other the strong factions get so much stronger than the ones that are coming from behind. It's not like it makes Sardak on equal footing with Soul to get 4 trade goods. It's no, Sardak, hopefully 4 trade goods puts them on a normal position, but 4 trade goods for Soul, they just don't even. It's like an extra wheel, and now they're just even more equipped to go deep into the mid game, I think that's the number one reason we don't like it is it's okay to give giving Winu 4 trade goods. I don't really bat an eye at that, but it's when a very good faction gets in that 6 o'clock position, I hate the idea that they're going to get 4 trade goods. So if anything, I want to play into your point of asymmetry. I wish there was kind of an asymmetrical solution to this.
Yeah,
I want in a 5-player game, I want every faction to have access to a certain kind of pie slice, and that's the only thing they're ever allowed to get. There needs to be something that balances against the weight of the factions in addition to a incredibly asymmetrical 5-player game.
Right.
You've thrown off the only remaining symmetry that this game had, which was a hexagon-shaped map.
Right. And the thing is, it's not like it's impossible to make a 5-player map that has some level of symmetry to it.
Right.
And I think we just like the idea of balancing with the map because it's still competitive.
Right.
Like if you give a player 4 trade goods at the start, the other players can do nothing about that. That is just literally just a like almost like a Deus Ex Machina solution to the problem.
But to change the kind of like what sort of planets you have access to based on how many players there are, it's like, okay, yes, you have access to that, but that doesn't mean you have it. You still have to work for everything you want to get.
And it still keeps everything in a competitive space. Whereas like, I mean, I just really hate the idea of someone getting a free victory point round 1 just because they started in a specific spot, and it just being that simple.
Especially considering the fact that, like, in a 6-player game, that 6 o'clock position that we're giving 4 trade goods to, in a 6-player game, that's a standard pie slice.
Right.
I would rather take something away from the 2 players in the positions that have wider pie slices. I would rather mess up their pie slices than give something to someone who is in what is typically considered a standard starting position.
Right.
Like if I choose to base everything off of the 6-player map. So if we're scaling back from there, it needs to be about taking away from players who would be gaining more out of a smaller map.
Right.
Or a smaller number of players in a map, right? So when you give 4 trade goods to someone who starts with just a normal start in any other game, it feels dirty.
But I also feel like maybe we're coming at this from a perspective of like people that are talking on a show about it, because we've already seen, since we put the call out for some 5-player maps, we've seen some now.
Yeah, and
you know
great.
what I mean? Like we are trying to figure out a way that is just more elegant and more interesting than just tossing trade goods at people.
I agree that I've seen some people say, like, I don't want just one 5-player map, and I agree. What I want is I want a list of 30 5-player maps that work so that at any point I can open up the book and go, flip, that one looks great. Let's do that.
Gonna harp on it again this week, but would love just lots of maps that are just
everyone
sitting somewhere.
So I didn't make this as clear as I could last week. On reddit.com/r/Twilight Imperium, there is a wiki. You click the wiki link in the top bar, and in there is a bunch of resources for new players, and it's really, really great. And I love everything that the mod team there has developed, and one of the biggest ones that I would love to see get kicked off the ground more is the cartographers, where the maps are. There's not very many there right now, and so what we're saying is put the call out, post your good maps, and put them there so we have at least one spot where all the maps go.
Yeah.
So anyone can open up the book and pick from the litter. All right, we got one more. Read it.
Okay. All right. So this one is okay. He's doing something weird here. He told me that I couldn't read this earlier, but all right. This is from Al Bundy Jr. Okay. I don't have anything useful to add about different sized games, but I can say that not only have I eaten hot dogs at movies, I used to buy 2 dogs for $1 at the gas station next door to my local theater and then sneak them in using my coat pockets. Talk about savings. All right, so what Al Bundy Jr. is saying here is that
he's a madman, and we're calling the cops.
He used to buy hot dogs, put them in his pocket for a little pocket dog, and then he'd go into the movie theater and pull out, and presumably, you know, you've got your coat pockets for your hot dogs. You've got your butt pockets for your relish. You've got your front pockets. You've got left front pocket ketchup, right front pocket mustard.
Well, no, it's just, you just pour it in the pocket, and then when you want to take a bite,
that's what I'm saying.
You dip the hot dog in the ketchup pocket.
You dip it in your ketchup pocket. Take a little mustard. Right. In fact, I actually have started eating hot dogs at home this way.
Yeah.
Because it's just a better way to do it. And yeah, so what? You were in your pants. They were going to get dirty anyway.
I want to tell you something. Cargo shorts opens up the game.
It really does, because then you can get onions in there. We're talking
chili dogs.
We're talking.
You get me to the varsity, and let me tell you, I'll tell you what do you have.
I used to go to this hot dog place. I forget what it was called. Oh man, and they had this really interesting contest there. And the way that the contest worked was that you eat 3 hot dogs in a sitting, and then you get a 4th hot dog for free, but you also have to eat it there. It was the worst promotion I've ever seen.
Eat 4 hot dogs.
It was just like
it's just buy 3, get
It
one.
was buy 3 hot dogs, get a 4th hot dog.
But we're going to watch.
But we're watching. You can't take it home with you.
We're creepy hot dog perverts, and we just want to watch you eat it.
Your prize is essentially that you hate yourself now.
I got to get out of this headspace because I'm sick of hearing about hot dogs.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Al Bundy Jr. You can go to our Twitter for game updates and enhancements.
What's our Twitter?
Space Cats Pod. You can go to our Facebook, Space Cats Beast Turtles, for enhancements and questions. You can go to Reddit, Twilight Imperium, for posts and discussions. That's how you get into the dang old errata. Or if you're RoboFish, you can go to the Board Game Geek Guild for discussions that he has there, and RoboFish's calendar for himself.
That hasn't been updated.
That hasn't been updated in a long time.
Sorry,
RoboFish is just like, what's going on? He's just like in the desert by himself.
I'm gonna make my own calendar.
Right. You can email us at spacecatspeaceturtles@gmail.com, and we like to get this Imperium live submissions and plays of the week there. You can go to our Patreon to contribute to the podcast and help make the podcast better. It's
Pledge Month.
Yeah, it's basically Pledge Month. We are how close to midnight are we on the whole Gen Con thing? I mean, it's like 2 weeks out now. It's completely insane.
It's 2 weeks to midnight.
2 weeks to midnight. 2 weeks to midnight.
That's my new action movie.
Yeah. 2 weeks to midnight. Please pledge all that you feel comfortable or want to pledge.
Again, if you just want to get it in before Gen Con, get it in this month, and we'll remind you that the start of next month to, like, if you want to pull out next month, we totally get it.
Right.
We will have more to offer in the future, but we just want to really give everything we've got to Gen Con. So getting a pledge in now helps with that goal.
We have been, to be honest, we have been holding off this entire time, waiting for Gen Con. Yeah. And now we are you're going to hear us with more, hopefully better gear,
that's
soon.
going to be a big part
and I'm really excited about all of that.
Yes.
You can hop onto our Discord for fun conversations and Patreon benefitos and memes. You can rate us on your podcast app of choice. We especially approve of Apple Podcasts. We love Apple Max, right? iTunes.
What are you doing?
Tim Cook.
Disgusting.
Yeah. Hello, my name is Donaldson. I'm a comedian, and actually, I'm going to have a new clip up on YouTube soon, which will be exciting. It's got some new material, one old joke, some crowd work that I did, really, really fun clip. But if you want to see me do comedy and you live in the Portland, Oregon area, you can see me this week co-hosting a very popular long-running Portland show called Earthquake Hurricane. That is at Ford Food and Drink. And it starts at 8 p.m. free show, and that's on July 19th. I actually might be collaborating with them more and more. I might be a weekly fixture. We're kind of doing a trial period thing right now. And also, some very exciting comedy news for me is that me and my co-producers for the Backyard Comedy Show that I've been doing were interviewed by the Oregonian. Yay! Which is crazy. You're going
to be in the paper, kid.
I'm going to be in a physical paper and also the digital one. Special shout out to someone who's definitely not listening, but Mike Acker, a writer from the Oregonian, approached us about doing this story. And yeah, we did the interview, and it's going to promote my show called Comedy Party House Show Comedy. And the next date for that show is July 28th at 8 p.m. This is the place where I always give the address, and it's weird, but it is at 6346 North Maryland Avenue. We've had listeners come out to the show before. It is the most fun show that I do, and the Oregonian noticed. That's how good it is.
Yeah, dog, get in there. Even if you live kind of far away from Portland, come see it.
Yeah, come see it. And
when does
it
end? Is it a summer only thing?
We talk about this a little bit in the article. Yeah. But we're gonna be doing another show in August. We might do an extra one in September that would just be a little bonus for everybody. But after that, we are going to be a pop-up show that you're just going to see every once in a while. We're thinking about doing one fall show, one winter show, one spring show, and then back summer for the summer.
Right. All right, well, I want to thank some patrons, some Patreoners. This week, we want to just give some extra special thanks to our Space Kitties tier. All our Space Kitties. They're a huge part of our Patreon. They're a huge part of our Discord.
Right.
They're a huge part of our lives.
Right.
And so I want to thank
Newcomer
Tim Combs.
Tim Combs.
Thank you for your contribution. I want to thank the cartographer of chaos in Mac We Trust. I realized recently that the K in your name is capitalized, and so I've been curious if your name is actually in Mac K We Trust, or if we've been saying it wrong or right the whole time.
I like in Mac We Trust, because I always imagine it's McDonald's.
And
the commander.
We want to thank the commander, and we are, as always, here to thank Jada Pake.
For whom the show is made.
For whom we started this with one audience member in mind. And
have you guys noticed that when the credits rolled every episode of Space Cats Peace Turtles, it says, for Jada?
For Jada.
It says that at the end.
I'm going to put that in the live stream now. The last thing on
For Jada.
For Jada. All right, let's do a play of the week.
Yeah, and let's get out of here. It's hot.
It's really hot in Portland, Oregon, without air conditioning.
It's like 99 degrees, guys.
This is from Jim Howes. From round 1, I was constantly peppered by Yin forces, while Muat controlled basically 2 pie slices and Mechatol. The goal of Muat and Yin the entire game was to eliminate me and then just play as normal. Fortunately, I was able to hold on to most of my pie slice for a good portion of the game, all while slowly accumulating victory points. Finally, in the second to last round, I was able to wrestle Mechatol from Muat and claim my secret objective. I was at 7 points, while Muat was at 6. The other two just simply didn't seem to care about victory points. Muat had the bureaucracy strategy card that round, and since everyone decided to play against me the whole game, I thought I might try a desperate Muat was drawing the top 2 public objective cards with bureaucracy. I should point out this is TI3. Bureaucracy allowed you to look at 2 public objectives, and you would put 1 on the newly revealed objectives, and the other ones you would just know is close to coming out, but you didn't put it out yet. So Jim says, I casually asked if when Imperium Rex got drawn, did that automatically end the game, or did it actually just have to be publicly revealed? Imperium Rex was an objective card that wasn't worth any victory points, but instead said game over, and the game would just end as soon as that card was revealed. I then added, of course, if Imperium Rex isn't one of those 2 cards, you don't need to look it up, I suppose. Begrudgingly, the Muat player looked it up in the rulebook to make sure, giving me the knowledge that one of the cards was indeed Imperium Rex. After looking it up, he smugly said, no, it just has to be revealed. It looks like we're going to be able to eliminate you after all. So now I had to end the game as quickly as possible with Imperium Rex. Fortunately, I had the speaker token, so I was able to choose bureaucracy for the final round. I just had to survive until my turn. Yin and Muat threw everything they could at me. At this point, I only had 2 systems left. One with my fleet at Mechatol, and 1 random 2-planet system with 0 defenses. Everything else was lost. Muat went first and threw 2 War Suns, several Dreadnoughts, and a bunch of other ships at my fleet. I desperately tried to hold on with all of my accumulated action cards, but he completely wiped out my fleet. Then Yin came and took my last system, but neglected to bring enough ground forces. And so, with 1 planet and no plastic of any kind on the board, I was able to play bureaucracy, reveal Imperium Rex, and win the game. And thus was the birth of our removing Imperium Rex house rule.
Yeah!
Yeah!
Yeah! Way to hang on!
Way to hang on.
Way to hang on!
I miss Imperium Rex only a little bit, because it made it, you never knew when the game was going to end. The game, Twilight Imperium used to be between 7 and 10 rounds, and now it's like, it will definitely end at least 9 rounds, but there was a time when it was just like, who knows what's going to happen? It's a mystery.
I know, and it's sort of like how you're listening to this show right now, and you don't know when it's going to end.
And why is Hunter sound so far away?
I do have this, like, deck of cards right now, and let's see what I got.
It's Imperium Rex.
No, it was the tech one.
Oh.
Thank you for listening to Space Cats Peace Turtles. And thanks to Ben Prunty for the use of his music. You can find more at benpruntymusic.com and benprunty.bandcamp.com.
This goes 2 ways. One is the way I do it. Mm-hmm. The way I do it is I tell everyone else at the table, Alexa,
stop. Sorry, that was Alexa.
She's trying to get in on the podcast. That was the L1Z1 Exa. All right.
Pax Magnifica, Bellum Gloriosum.